A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, let's get a check-in with the Australian Christian Lobby. Ashlyn Weiss is the Australian Christian Lobby State Director for South Australia. Ashlyn, a special welcome back to 2020.
Thank you, and good morning, Neil.
Ashlyn, let's start. The Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Commissioner had accepted a complaint against the Australian Christian Lobby. This seems a little unusual, but fill us in on the details.
That's right. Well, unfortunately, it's not too unusual, as there's been similar complaints accepted in the past under Tasmania's pretty wide-reaching anti-discrimination laws. But to my knowledge, this is the first time ACL has been subject to this type of complaint in Tassie. We distributed a flyer during the election, and some of your listeners might have seen it, indeed, if they were in one of our marginal electorates that we were campaigning in. And it was very basic, just outlining the policies that the Greens have on gender-affirming care, and particularly highlighting how they want to have gender-affirming surgeries or transgender surgeries completely taxpayer funded. So the title of the flyer was Male and Female Matter, but the Greens don't agree, and then it just listed all of their policies, including, or just three of their policies actually related to gender ideology and transgender surgery. But there's been a complaint made against it, and the Commissioner has accepted it, which means we'll have to go through a process of defending it.
Well, it seems to me, Ashlyn, and I think this will be clear in the minds of so many listeners too, that when you put anything out, as someone will say, that's offensive, that's humiliating, that's intimidating, or that's insulting, then somehow or other a complaint can be made against you. And that seems to be what's happened in this case. Well,
that's the key. It's that word offence means mere offence is enough to trigger a legal process in Tasmania. Even if the complaint in the end isn't successful, that basis is enough to drag someone through the courts. And we saw that with Archbishop Julian Porteous in 2015 when he distributed a booklet to members of Catholic education about the Catholic Church's position on marriage. And that was, at the time when the conversation around same-sex marriage was happening. And it simply outlined what the Catholic Church believes and what it has always believed. And that saw the Archbishop go through a very painstaking and costly process of having to defend the Catholic Church's right to speak about what they believe. And in this particular case, I think what's really concerning about the Commissioner accepting this complaint, and just to emphasise, they don't have to accept trivial complaints, is that it really impedes on the right to free political communication and the freedom during elections to criticise policies and just educate the public about what those policies are. There was no real emotive language in this flyer. There was nothing that wasn't true. But it's made it to this point. So we'll not only be defending the complaint, but we will continue to lobby for changes to the current laws in Tasmania, which is similar in some other states where offence is a basis for suing someone.
Well, you highlight very, very significantly, this is around a freedom of political communication, something that we assume that in a democracy you should be able to have, and there can be no doubt, can there, Ashlyn, that the ACL is a political organisation. You are dealing on these levels every day of the week, every day of the year. So just come back to these flyers. There's been a complaint, and the ACL distributed flyers and highlighting the Greens wanted to remove all out-of-pocket costs for gender-affirming treatments so that it's fully funded by taxpayers. But you were, as I understand it, highlighting some Greens policy here.
That's right. And what we understand from surveys and research that we've done is the majority of the public don't actually agree with that policy. But many people are not aware that that's what the Greens, that their official policy platform is. Even though it's on their website, oftentimes we see people voting for the Greens simply because of concern for the environment and things like that. And so our motive behind this flyer was simply to educate people on some of the other policies that the Greens support. And they have successfully pushed quite a bit of things related to gender ideology already in our states. And so it wasn't unfounded that we were concerned about this actually becoming law and, taxpayers having to fund transgender surgeries, as well as more gender clinics opening in hospitals and children being taught gender fluidity from a young age.
Okay, so a complaint has been made. I assume we can say that's come from the Greens, or is it? Do you know where the complaint has come from? Is it just someone, an ordinary concerned citizen in the community, or has it come from the political party themselves? Do you know about that at all, Ashlyn?
Just a member of the public, from my understanding, and that's the risk we take, I suppose, when we're putting these flyers in people's letterboxes. Is even if we have no intention to offend and we simply wish to raise awareness in good faith, it is always possible that someone would consider themselves offended by that.
All right, so it's a member of the public and they've made a complaint, and now the Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Commissioner has launched a formal investigation into the Australian Christian lobby. So the formal investigation, I imagine, as you say, as you've been able to highlight various cases before, the process is the punishment. So is the ACL in for a really significant process here with an investigation like this?
That would depend on how willing the other party is to negotiate, and also whether the conciliator and the person acting on behalf of the Commission is reasonable. So it is possible that we'd be up for a very long process, and we have seen that with similar complaints in the past, that people have been able to take this much farther than what was necessary. And it is a very expensive process. But we're hopeful, and we've sought the advice of the Human Rights Law Alliance, which is a sister organisation of ours that day in, day out defends complaints like this. We're hopeful that we can come just to an agreement very quickly.
Okay, and quickly might be good. The Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Act, the Commissioner has decided that the flyer has actually caused offence. So there's some issue that's going on here. The timing of all of this, Ashlyn, we might be thinking, is there an election coming? Well, there is an election coming. The Tasmanian election, there's been a snap election called for the 19th of July. Do you think that this complaint about the ACL may be designed to silence you in the lead up to the Tasmanian election, which is just under 3 weeks away?
I'm actually not too sure. I mean, that is possible. And we will be highlighting issues relating to similar concerns. That gender ideology is always something we speak about during elections. So it's possible that was a tactic. I don't know. But we're going to be continuing on and looking to highlight a couple of key issues in Tasmania related to religious freedom. One of them is that an inquiry has just wrapped up into schools in Tasmania and discrimination in schools. And there has been some concern that inquiry was pushing to remove some protections against faith-based schooling and the right for preferential employment and things like that. So we'll be asking MPs and candidates about their commitment to Christian schooling. We will also be asking about what their position is on things like a conversion therapy bill, which some of your supporters might have heard about from us before. But there is a push from organisations like Equality Australia to silence Christians in another way through limiting pastoral care and prayer and conversations even on gender and sexuality. We've seen similar bills being passed in Victoria and New South Wales. So that's another thing where we're going to be having to raise these topics in the public. We've got a very short time to do it. As you said, the election was a snap election. It was been called for with 4 weeks' notice. But, we value the freedom that we have in Australia to be able to talk about these things, especially during election time. It's basic, I guess, democratic principles that people know what they're pushing for and what's on the line when they go to vote on election day. We're going to go ahead with that, but I'm not sure about what their motives were in terms of the timing and election.
Ashlyn, there is a push then for that conversion bill in Tasmania. As I understand it, both sides are committed to passing something of a draft conversion therapy bill. Where do you see both sides? Are they different, or is one harsher than the other? Have you got any impression there?
There is a commitment, as you said, from the current Liberal government and also from the Labor opposition to pass a conversion bill. And it's been a conversation going on in Tasmania for a long time. So a few years ago, the Tasmanian Law Reform Institute published a report pushing for a conversion therapy ban. It was actually one of the most extreme reports that we saw in the whole country. It didn't allow for any religious freedom protections. It didn't even acknowledge religious freedom concerns. It was very much straight down the line. We want to ban any conversation that suggests someone shouldn't change their gender or perhaps shouldn't live a homosexual lifestyle. So it was very extreme in the beginning, this push in Tasmania, but over the last couple of years, and ACL has been a part of that, we've been pushing for that to be really watered down. And there has been a bill put together that has some religious freedom protections in it, but of course our position is always that this bill actually isn't necessary or beneficial in the first place. You asked if one party is more extreme or the other. Labor hasn't put together a draft bill of any kind, so I suppose we can't see exactly what they would propose, but as you might know, there is a bit more of an appetite oftentimes within the Labor Party to censor freedom of speech on these issues. Unfortunately, the Liberal Party is supporting it too, and I think the key will really be supporting members in Tasmania who are against this, and so that's why we're going to be highlighting what candidates' positions are in our election materials.
So the only bill that you can look at is the one by the Liberals, and that's interesting, isn't it? Because conversion bills in other states have, as you mention, they've limited those pastoral and parental opportunities to step in when parents or even those who are seeking prayer in some ways, that they might get some issues dealt with around that sexuality and gender, and parents criminalised, even churches criminalised, because they believe a biblical foundation of male and female, or a biblical tradition of marriage. Hey, the Tasmanians are going to the election less than 3 weeks away. What sort of resources have you got for Tasmanian voters that they can look for?
So, we've been putting together a few different things, and the first will be our election website, which is the address is tasvotes.org.au. Now, it isn't quite live yet, but if listeners from Tasmania want to remember that, it's pretty easy to remember, tasvotes.org.au. Very soon we'll be launching live with more information on parties, more information on the issues that are at stake. We always ask about other things, including late-term abortion. That's a pretty important issue at a state level. ACL opposes abortion at all levels, but there is, I think, an importance to highlight the extremity of Tasmania's current laws, which allow for abortion at any point during the pregnancy. And then we will ask about other issues like the ones I've raised related to religious freedom, the freedom of the gospel in schools, freedom of speech. So have a look at tasvotes.org.au. You can save it on your browser and it will launch live very shortly. We'll also be hosting some online election forums. So if listeners from Tassie want to go onto our website, acl.org.au, and sign up for our updates, we'll be letting Tasmanian supporters know when and where those events are happening to give our supporters more information.
So not always so easy to organise in-person forums when there's a snap election. It is a snap election, less than 3 weeks away now, so meet the candidate forums this time around online. And for listeners in Tasmania, you might want to do that. Just note the ACL website, acl.org.au, to be able to access where those when you can be participating in those online Meet the Candidate forums. Hey, the Tas Votes website's likely to be launched this week. And Ashlyn, just looking ahead, you're in South Australia, and we're talking about Tasmania, but you've got some gender healthcare gatherings coming up, even a summit that's planned for a little bit later on this year. These things become all the more important, don't they, when we're talking about the sorts of political manoeuvring that's happening around issues to do with gender.
That's right. So the Coalition Advancing Scientific Care, or TASC, is a group that will be holding a big summit in October. The ACL is supporting and inviting people to come along to. It will be the first of its kind in Australia. We'll be inviting international speakers like Helen Joyce and also a Finnish global expert on gender healthcare to come and speak with us about these issues. We'll be inviting, or TASC will be inviting people from around Australia who've been impacted by this issue, other healthcare professionals. So again, you can hear updates from us about that if you sign up to us on our website, or if you're already on our emailing list, you've probably heard about it from me already. But it is certainly an issue that we just need to keep pushing momentum for, because it is, at the end of the day, impacting incredibly vulnerable people. And we want to see a day where children who are confused about their identity are actually supported to live in their God-given bodies and to be who God created them to be, and not to be pushed down a path of destruction and a path of lies about who they really are. So it comes from a place of really caring for these people and seeing the damage that it has already been causing in our country. So absolutely we'll be plugging that conference and keeping on lobbying for it in the South Australian election as well, which is coming up in March next year.
That's right. Elections are coming, and significant. We're talking about Tasmania today, and very, very deeply concerning that the Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Commissioner has accepted a complaint against the Australian Christian lobby. You've got to put two and two together yourself. Timeliness with a snap election on the way, and what looks like a way to try and silence the Australian Christian lobby. My suspicion is that'll make them louder than ever. acl.org.au to connect with Ashlyn Weiss from the Australian Christian Lobby, acl.org.au. Ashlyn, thank you so much for another great update, and just a quick reminder for listeners too, it might not be too late to make a donation too at the end of financial year. So acl.org.au. Ashlyn, thanks so much for another great update today.
Thanks very much, Neil.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.